All right, kia ora, everyone. It's Nathan Rose from Capgemini here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. It is an incredibly exciting Monday. Not only did we just finish up the Ignite conference last week and get co-pilots, but connections have shown up in low-code PowerFX plugins, at least in my tenant in my region. And so I am really excited to take you through a first look at accessing connections in low-code PowerFX plugins. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I've got a lot to take you through today. We're just scratching the surface, but there is quite a bunch of stuff that we want to get through. So this may be a longer video than you usually get from me, but let's dive in and get started. Okay, so for those of you who have been using the Dataverse Accelerator app, you have probably seen the connections button up here in the upper right hand corner of the app, which allows you to access connections that you've created from the Maker portal in your Power Platform environment. This extends plugins substantially. It means we're not just limited to things like Dataverse. We can go out and call all kinds of third-party services via API, same way we do in Power Apps today. So let's get hands-on with this and see this in action. Now, before you get started, I'll advise you to do a few things. First thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to create connection references to the APIs that you want to use in your plugin. So you're going to need to create those connection references in the Maker portal in Power Apps, and then you're going to need to add those connection references to a solution. If you don't do that, they won't show up in the Dataverse Accelerator app. So you need to do that. Second thing I'm going to advise you to do before you go gung-ho and start trying to add these into plugins, go and play with the connectors in Power Automate and in Power Apps. Now, the reason I'm going to tell you to do this is that the IntelliSense authoring canvas in low-code plugins isn't always the same and super specific in terms of what the connection is actually looking for. Let me give you a specific example. So this is a Cloudflow that I created to ping dadjokes.io. It's a free connector that you can use in Power Apps to get a joke randomly, and it has this parameter here called count. Now, when you create the plugin, all you have to do is stick an integer value in the plugin, and it will look like the IntelliSense won't throw you an error, but it's actually not going to work. When you come into Power Apps, you actually need to format it like this, with the count spelled out as a parameter in curly brackets. And that's what the plugin actually needs to work. So again, set up the connection in Power Automate, set it up in Power Apps, play around with it, get your head around the parameters that the plugin is looking to ingest and the output parameters before you start playing with it in plugins. Cool. Okay, so once you've got that all set up, you're now ready to get into the Dataverse Accelerator app and start creating plugins that call third-party connections. Now, these work with both automated and instant plugins in Power Apps, and we'll take a look at the instant ones first. So this is a simple one that I created. All this does is pings the MSN weather API and gives us the current weather conditions. So I started fairly simple just to get my head around this, and then we'll build up to some more complicated scenarios. So here's what the API is looking for. So it's looking for a location as a string value, and it's looking for a unit of measure, i.e. Celsius or Fahrenheit. And then it's going to return a bunch of different weather items, and I've just specified the ones that I want. Now you actually have to do that here in the PowerFX plugin expression. So you can see this is my connection here. So I'm specifying my location and my unit, and then based on the response, I specify exactly what I want, which is just a short sentence saying what the current weather conditions are, because it's going to return a JSON object with a bunch of different data points. And at this point, I can't take a JSON object back in my PowerFX plugins. Although if anyone from the product team is watching, that would actually be super useful to just take a JSON object back and then be able to parse it. But at the moment, all we can do is take strings, integers, entity references, that type of thing. So so let's go ahead and test this and see it in action. So let's give this a location. So I'm in Auckland. Let's say Auckland. Let's say Celsius because that's what we use down here. And say run. And you can see that this has gone ahead and called the API. And it said that the current conditions are cloudy. Accurate. Cool. So that's an instant plugin calling a connection externally and bringing that data back in. Let's kick it up a notch and see this working in an automated plugin because we can do that as well. So I've created an automated plugin. Just get back here to my list of plugins. And what this is doing is it's going to call this endpoint and drop the current weather conditions into a Dataverse row. So I've combined a few of these expressions here. So it's going to go ahead, call this connection, this API, drop this into a Dataverse row, and then I've added another expression just to set the name column on the Dataverse row as well. So let me pop over here to my model-driven app, and let's get into weather forecasts, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new row. So this is currently running pre-operation on create. If any of you saw my last video, I had some issues with running the automated plugins post operation. I did toggle this one a few times, and it actually works both pre and post operation. So it looks like the team's made an update behind the scenes. But let's go ahead. Let's pop in a location. So again, we're in Auckland. So we want units in Celsius. And let's go ahead and call this. So we're going to see the current weather conditions drop here, and we're going to see a name column get populated here. So let's see this plugin in action. And you can see it's done it. So cloudy, and it's put current weather for Auckland based on the plugin logic. So that's an automated plugin calling a connection endpoint outside of Dataverse and then dropping that into Dataverse. So pretty cool. So that's the stuff that's the easy stuff. That's what I got to work. Let's move on to some more complex scenarios, some stuff that I'm actually struggling with. So there's a couple of things I'll take you through that I'm still crunching on, still trying to work out. So if any of you watching have any ideas, do drop me a line on LinkedIn and let me know how I could possibly solve this. The first one I'm going to look at, so I had a brilliant idea, like let's get some humor into some of these demos. Let's add some jokes. And so I have used the dadjokes.io connector a few times in the past for some stuff that I've built and played around with. So I thought let's go ahead and use that. Now, when I was trying to work with the dad jokes connector in my plugin, I could successfully call it, but I'm unable to get an output parameter. Um, I don't have a plugin set up with it at the moment, but I'll just show you. So this works in a Canvas app if I drop the results into a gallery, because what's actually coming back is a table. So go ahead and call this. So you can see it's gone ahead, called this, and dropped it into the gallery. In the, I think what's going on is when I use this connector, I can set the number of jokes that I want to get back. So let's go ahead and run this again in Power Automate. And so I'm getting an array back from the API. Even if I just set my parameter to 1. So if we come here to test that I ran a few weeks ago, Even though I've said I just want a single joke, it's still passing this back to me as an array. And I think what's going on with low code plugins, at least as far as I can tell, is that they don't like getting an array back, a table that they would have to loop through or something like that. So I could be wrong. It is early days. I'm not sure if it's just a case of I've not managed to get my expression right, but yeah, I did struggle with getting array formatted, table formatted data back as opposed to. I'll just show you this other API that I'm using. Just sends me back a single joke formatted as a string, and that goes ahead and works as expected. So let's take a look at some other things that we could maybe do with these connections and automated plugins. So now that I've worked out how to get a joke back in a format that will work with the plugin, what I thought would be really cool would be to grab a joke from the API and then pass that joke through something like Azure Sentiment to get a reading on it. Sentiment analysis, be cool to use something like GPT-4 to say, hey, is this joke actually appropriate? Should this go in Dataverse or something like that? But that's what I've attempted to start working with. And I'll just show you the plugin in action. So I've got about half of it built. So when I go ahead and create this record, the automated plugin is going to go and populate this column here in Dataverse. So you can see that it's gone and done that. Now, if we come here to the Dataverse Accelerator app, let's take a look at this plugin and what's going on. So you can see I'm simply setting this column based on this connection. Easy peasy. The next thing I want to do though is I actually want to pass the contents of this joke through something like Azure Sentiment. So I'm going to take a bit of a risk here and let's do some live dev work, which may or may not go in our favor. I'm not actually able to get this to work, but I need to kind of do some live dev just to show you the issue that I'm having. So if I come here to my connections and I'm going to choose Azure Cognitive Services. And what I want to do is go through sentiment analysis. Now, you can copy the expression that you need. You can also just start typing. So if I just start typing, you can see that my connections are showing up. But let me go ahead and copy because I want to make sure that I get the right one. So let's come here. Let's say detect sentiment. I'm going to copy this and let's put this here. And I'm going to say, yeah, joys of doing live dev. This worked for me when I was rehearsing earlier. The issue I've got is that what I'm trying to show you guys is that this isn't going to work because it's deprecated. Now, I've found this for a number of the actions that are available here, is there's a number of deprecated actions that are showing up that you're not actually going to be able to use. So that's kind of frustrating. If they're deprecated, if they're not available, they really shouldn't show up here. So hopefully that's an easy one for the team to just filter these a bit better so that we only get ones that we can actually use. So I'm still crunching away on this one. Firstly, trying to find the one that will actually work, and then seeing if I can actually do this. So this is still a bit of a work in progress for me, but just wanted to show you that you do need to be careful because particularly with the Azure ones, there's a bunch of deprecated stuff that will show up. So that's about it from me. That's the first look at connections in low-code PowerFX plugins. So they are now live in my region, which is CRM 6. So we're usually one of the last ones to get things. So these should be live. So connections should work for you in low-code plugins in your environment now. This is a tutorial, first look at how to get started with them. If you've got questions, if you there's anything that you've seen in this video that any of the things that I've struggled with that you have some suggestions for, drop me a line on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Let's all learn together. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope this was helpful.